Remember, yesterday I read you the story about Buster Bear and Little Joe Otter. Well, I'm going to read you another Buster Bear story today. Let's see. But this one's titled, Farmer Brown's Boy and Buster Bear Grow Curious. Ever since it was light enough to see all, Blacky the Crow had been sitting in the top of the tallest tree on the edge of the Green Forest nearest to Farmer Brown's house, and never for an instant had he taken his eyes from Farmer Brown's back door. What was he watching for? Why, for Farmer Brown's boy to come out on his way to milk the cows. Meanwhile, Sammy Jay was slipping silently through the Green Forest looking for Buster Bear. So then when the time came, he could let his cousin, Blacky the Crow, know just where Buster was. By and by, the back door of Farmer Brown's house opened, and out stepped Farmer Brown's boy. In each hand he carried a milk pail. Right away, Blacky began to scream at the top of his lungs. "Caw, caw, caw!" shouted Blacky. "Caw, caw, caw!" And all the time he flew among the trees near the edge of the Green Forest, as if so excited that he couldn't keep still. Excuse me. Farmer Brown's boy looked over there as if he wondered what all the fuss was about. As indeed he did, but he didn't start to go over and see. No, sir. He started straight for the barn. He had a job to do, and he was going to the barn with his milk pails to milk the cows, and maybe they had goats too. Blacky didn't know what to make of it. You see, smart as he is and shrewd as he is, Blacky doesn't know anything about the meaning of duty, for he never has to work excepting to get enough to eat. So when Farmer Brown's boy started for the barn instead of the Green Forest, Blacky didn't know what to make of it. He screamed harder and louder than ever until his voice grew so hoarse he couldn't scream anymore. But Farmer Brown's boy kept right on to the barn. He was doing his chore. "I'd like to know what you're making such a fuss about, Mr. Crow, but I've got to feed the cows and milk them first," he said. Now all this time the other little people of the Green Forest and the Green Meadows had been hiding where they could see all that went on. When Farmer Brown's boy disappeared in the barn, Chatterer, this red squirrel, snickered right out loud. "Ha, ha, ha! This is a great plan of yours, Blacky? Ha, ha, ha!" he shouted. Blacky couldn't find a word to say. He just hung his head, which is something Blacky seldom does. I guess he had a great plan to get the little Farmer Brown's boy to go into the forest. Perhaps if we wait until he comes out again, he will come over here," said Sammy Jay, who had joined Blacky. So it was decided to wait. It seemed as if Farmer Brown's boy never would come out, but at last he did. He had a lot of cows to feed, a lot of cows to milk. Blacky and Sammy Jay at once began to scream and make all the fuss they could. Farmer Brown's boy took 2 pails of milk into the house, and out he came. He started straight for the Green Forest, just where they wanted him to go. He was so curious to know what it all meant that he couldn't wait another minute. Now, there was someone else with a great deal of curiosity also. He had heard the screaming of Blacky the Crow and Sammy Jay, and he had listened until he couldn't stand it another minute. He just had to know what it was all about. So at the same time Farmer Brown's boy started for the Green Forest, this other listener started straight towards the place where Blacky and Sammy were making such a fuss. He walked very softly so as not to make any sound. It was Buster Bear. If you should meet with Buster while walking through the wood, what would you do? Now tell me true. "I'd run the best I could." Now that is what Farmer Brown's boy did when he met Buster Bear. And a lot of little people of the Green Forest, some from the Green Meadows, saw him. When Farmer Brown's boy came hurrying home from the Laughing Brook without any fish one day and told about the great footprint he had seen in a muddy place on the bank deep in the Green Forest, and had said he was sure that it was the footprint of a bear, he had been laughed at. Farmer Brown laughed and laughed and laughed. He didn't believe what his son was telling him. "Why," he said, "there hasn't been a bear in the Green Forest for years and years and years, not since my own grandfather was a little boy. And that, you know, was a long, long, long time ago. If you want to find Mr. Bear, you will have to go to the Great Woods. I don't know who made that footprint, but it certainly wouldn't have been a bear. I think you must have imagined it." Then he had laughed some more, all of which he goes to show how easy it is to be mistaken, and how foolish it is to laugh at things you really don't know about. Buster Bear had come to live in the Green Forest, and Farmer Brown's boy had seen his footprint. But Farmer Brown laughed so much and made fun of him so much that at last his boy began to think that he must have been mistaken, after all. So when he heard Blacky the Crow and Sammy Jay making a great fuss near the edge of the Green Forest, he never once thought of Buster Bear as he started over to see what was going on. He heard all that noise and didn't think that he would ever see a bear because his father said there were no bears around anymore. When Blacky and Sammy saw him coming, they moved a little farther into the Green Forest, still screaming in the most excited way. They felt sure that Farmer Brown's boy would follow them, and they meant to lead him to where Sammy had seen Buster Bear that morning. Then they would find out for sure if what Little Joe Otter had said was true, that Farmer Brown's boy really was afraid of Buster Bear. Now, all around, behind trees and stumps and under thick branches and even treetops, were other little people watching with round, wide-open eyes to see what would happen. It was very exciting, the most exciting thing they could remember. You see, they had come to believe that Farmer Brown's boy wasn't afraid of anybody or anything, and as most of them were very much afraid of him, they had worked hard to believe that he would really be afraid of even such a great big strong fellow as Buster Bear. Everyone was so busy watching Farmer Brown's boy that no one saw Buster coming from the other direction. You see, Buster walked very softly. Big as he is, he can walk without making the teeniest, weeniest sounds. You should try that when you're outside. See how quietly you can walk. And that is how it happened that no one saw him or heard him until just as Farmer Brown's boy stepped out from behind one side of a thick hemlock tree, Buster Bear stepped out from behind the other side of that same little tree. And there they were, face to face. Then everybody held their breath, even Blacky the Crow and Sammy Jay. For just a minute, it was so still there in the Green Forest that not the littlest sound could be heard. What was going to happen? A surprising thing happens. Blacky the Crow and Sammy the Jay, looking down from the top of a tall tree, held their breath. Happy Jack the Gray Squirrel and his cousin Chatterer the Red Squirrel, looking down from another tree, held their breath. Uncle Billy Possum, sticking his head out from a hollow tree, held his breath. Bobby Coon, looking through a hole in a hollow stump in which he was hiding, held his breath. Reddy Fox, lying flat down behind a heap of brush, held his breath. Peter Rabbit, sitting bolt upright under a thick hemlock branch, with his eyes and ears wide open, held his breath. And all the while, all the little people who happened to be there, where they could see, did the same thing. They were all hiding in the forest because they wanted to see what was going to happen, but they were a little bit afraid of Buster Bear. You see, it was the most exciting moment ever was in the Green Forest. Farmer Brown's boy had just stepped out from behind one side of Little Hemlock Tree, and Buster Bear had just stepped out from behind the opposite side of Little Hemlock Tree, and neither had known that the other was anywhere near. For a whole minute they stood there face to face, gazing into each other's eyes, while everybody watched and waited, and it seemed as if the whole Green Forest was holding its breath. Then something happened. Yes, sir, something happened. Farmer Brown's boy opened his mouth and yelled. It was a sudden yell, and such a loud yell that it startled Chatterer so that he nearly fell from his place in the tree, and made Reddy Fox jump to his feet. And that yell was the yell of fright. There was no doubt about it, for with the yell, Farmer Brown's boy turned and ran for home, as no one ever had seen him run before. He ran just as Peter Rabbit runs when he's got to reach the dear old briar patch before Reddy Fox can catch him, which you know is as fast as he can run. Once he stumbled and fell, but he scrambled to his feet, and in a twinkling, and away he went, without once turning his head to see if Buster Bear was after him. There wasn't any doubt that he was afraid, very much afraid. Everybody leaned forward to watch. "What did I tell you? Didn't I say that he was afraid of Buster Bear?" cried Little Joe Otter, dancing about with excitement. "You were right, Little Joe. I'm sorry that I doubted it." "See him go! Caw, caw, caw!" shrieked Blacky the Crow. For a minute or two, everybody forgot about Buster Bear. Then there was a great crash which made everybody turn to look the other way. What do you think they saw? Why, Buster Bear was running away too, and he was running twice as fast as Farmer Brown's boy. He bumped into trees and crashed through bushes and jumped over logs, and in almost no time at all he was out of sight. Altogether, it was the most surprising thing that the little people of the Green Forest had ever seen. So it must have been like sometimes if you're walking perhaps down the hallway and somebody is coming out of the doorway and you don't know it, and you bump right into each other, and you're so startled that you don't know what to do. That I think that's what happened to Buster Bear and the Farmer Brown's boy. They were just so startled by each other, they just turned around and ran. So thank you for listening again today.